Okay, so we're still riding high off the coattails of the World Juniors. We saw 2 games yesterday. It was the bronze medal match between Finland and Russia. Russia ended up losing. And the gold medal game that was very, very big. But today we're talking about Team Russia and a lot of the stuff that has been said about them, because it's very conversational, I guess. Yeah, I'll use that word. Conversational is the right word because we can have a conversation about these things. Now, if you're a Canucks fan out there looking for a Podkolzin recap, this is not it. This is not a video where we go over Podkolzin and talk about what he did, how he was, how I thought he was, all that stuff. Instead, we're going over the overall stuff that was said by Viacheslav Fetisov and Gord Miller, because we have 2 interesting ideas with Russian hockey that kind of gets some people's gears rolling, and other people it's like, this is a very interesting point being made. So, without further ado, our story takes place starting off when Team Russia ended up losing to Team Canada in the semi-finals matchup. If you remember watching that game, Team Canada just completely took over. Russia didn't really have all too much of an opportunity. They played just not all too great. Meanwhile, the Canadians in this game showed everybody why they were touted as the best team on paper, even without Kirby talk. The control, the goals, the shutout. Team Russia lost 5-0. And after this game, we had ourselves some comments made by Viacheslav Fetisov. And if you know who I am as a YouTuber, you've seen the previous videos we've made about Russian hockey players, the Soviet Union, and the history behind these names. Igor Larionov, Sergei Makarov, Krutov, Fetisov, Kasatonov, Vladislav Tretiak, these are the guys, part of that Red Army Green Unit squad. Well, not Tretiak, he was the goalie of that team, but regardless, this is what Viacheslav Fetisov, an NHL legend, a Hall of Famer, former defectant of the Soviet Union hockey club system and country, and eventual NHL star, had to say about the squad coached by his former colleague Igor Larionov. And of course, I've said it this entire offseason, this article is an interview done with a Russian sports journalistic website, because it's always these ones that have the biggest, most juiciest quotes out of these Russian hockey players. So, Fetisov says this about the Team Russia performance at the World Juniors. I was very upset watching the match against Team Canada. Our team tried, but we lost in all respects. None of our hockey players would have even made it to the Canadian team should they have actually tried. Igor Larionov received players who were brought up by Russian hockey. It's not a matter of mood, it's just a different understanding of the game. There was nothing to even catch on to, Fetisov said in an interview with Sport 24. The situation is depressing. It would be better if I had not seen this match. There was simply no game. We were not close to the Canadian team by any of the indicators. Oh my gosh. Oh man, that's some pretty heavy stuff right there, Vyacheslav Fetisov. Now, if you're going out there thinking, who does this guy think he is, talking about the Russian team and all that, well, let's just do the introduction right here. Fetisov was one of the best defenders the Soviet hockey system had ever seen. He was named alongside of the best of all-time Soviet squad for the World Juniors, alongside of Alexander Romanov, Ovechkin, and who else was it? Pavel Bure and Alex McGillney? Yeah. He's a great player of all time, and he did play with Igor Larionov as a member of the Green Unit back in the 80s during the Soviet Union's hockey heyday. And in fact, these comments over here, where he says that his Russian team was just completely embarrassing and that he rather would have been better off not watching the game, they were criticized by Ray Ferraro, who came out here on TV yesterday saying you don't know what the players are going through, it's different when you're actually on the ice, playing, etc., and you're just sitting up there in a chair watching it on TV screen, it's different, so you don't have the right to go out there and say that. I mean, there are different points on both sides that I want to agree with for sure. But when it comes to what Fetisov was saying in general, how the players on this Russian team were just a product of the normal Russian hockey system today, this is kind of what he means. According to Fetisov, in Russia there is no stable system for the development of youth hockey, so it's very difficult for a coach to influence the team's results. Having headed the youth team, Igor Larionov got involved in a risky story. Personally, I don't understand why he tried to do it. Trying to change what is happening at 60 years old is a serious challenge. Now, what exactly does that even mean? Well, Igor Larionov got onto this national team for the World Juniors and he said, you know what, this Russian hockey team, what I want is for us to play the Soviet way. Now, the Soviet way was orchestrated back in the 80s, and I forgot the exact guy who came up with the system, but it was mentioned in the Red Army documentary that I watched. It's a very, very good watch. If you want to see the history of Larionov, Fetisov, all these guys, watch this documentary. But the Soviet system of the 80s was very puck possession heavy. These guys would want to hold on to the puck at all times, and they would pass it to another guy, and they wouldn't really play for the points, you know? These guys wouldn't go out there to score a hat trick a game or whatever. If they had a hat trick, cool. But the way these guys played was interweaving. The defense sometimes played up front, the forward sometimes played back on D, and they would all interchange with the puck, without the puck, going around each other, finding open space, and it was really magical, the kind of style the Soviets played back in the 80s. It was so dominant. And Igor Larionov pretty much said before the World Juniors that a lot of the aspects that made that Soviet style so magical back in the day have been kind of lost in today's overall gameplay of Russian hockey. So he wanted to come over here and coach the Russian junior team towards doing that style. Which is why Fetisov says it's kind of risky to try to incorporate that style amongst the youth who grew up without it. But we have ourselves some comments over here from Gord Miller that were made during yesterday's game between the Russians and the Finnish hockey team. I remember this was said sometime after the Finns went up a little bit in the scoreboard, but he says this. Gord Miller has claimed that the Soviet ice hockey program system was never really a hockey superpower. Despite their numerous gold medals and Canada Cup victories, Miller points out that Canada never sent their best players to international tournaments until the Summit Series of 1972. Of 10 major tournaments, the Russians were only victorious against the world's best in 1981. And pretty much what he was saying here when he made this point was that it was kind of weird how Larionov wanted to promote this system. This system that, as annotated by Larionov himself, was the system that allowed the Soviets to win so many international tournaments, so many international games, and just be on top of the hockey world in the 80s and the 70s. Miller's idea was that Larionov was just kind of trying to pull up something from thin air here, because even though you guys won all those tournaments, you guys weren't playing the best in the world. You guys weren't playing Team Canada with the best NHL players who were there, because the NHL just wouldn't send its players there once in a while. They did play sometimes, like in 1981. This is where Gretzky came out here and he said that the Russian system was so difficult to play against. There was Guy Lafleur out there, there was Marcel Dion, I believe, and the Soviets completely whooped Canada. Even some other times before that, you know, here's the Challenge Cup in 1979, just the first one that I googled that came out over here. Look at the players on this Soviet Union roster. There's Sergei Makarov, he's over here. You have Vladimir Petrov, Valery Kharlamov, very good players. And then look at the guys on the other team. Hey, there's Guy Lafleur, Larry Robertson, Bob Gainey, Lanny McDonald, Mike Bossy, Bobby Clark, Denny Potvin, Esposito, Dryden. And the Soviet Union won. They won in a best 2 out of 3, and they won Game 3, 6-0 against the NHL All-Stars. So even though it is legitimately, factually correct that the Soviets never really won too many tournaments internationally against the best the world had to offer, it's not like the Soviet style was unsuccessful, because they still played against some of the best the NHL had to offer throughout the 70s and the 80s, and they still whooped the NHL talent. Which is why, even though Gord Miller's point makes sense, there still are other aspects that I think kind of contradict that idea. So to me, it's perfectly valid when Igor Larionov comes over here and says, yeah, you know, I want to coach the old Soviet style into these Russian hockey players that allowed us to do well. Because, hey, they still did very, very well, even though they were playing mostly against other Russians and not really the best players in the entire world once in a while. They still had all that success individually, and when they did play NHL competition, they would completely whoop them once in a while. So that's why to me it's completely valid, but Fetisov coming out here saying, yeah, it's a complete disgrace watching this Russian team at the World Juniors. It doesn't really sound like Larionov did a good job, but Who knows? If there's going to be some kind of reform here where, I don't know, there's a big rejuvenation of youth hockey teaching in Russia where they actually start learning how to play the old Soviet style again with the chess pieces and all that, like, that'd be really cool. But obviously that's a lot more political than I want it to be, so let's just end this conversation off here. Talk to me in the comments what you think about Viacheslav Fetisov and his comments about how bad the Russian team was, Ray Ferraro defending the team against Viacheslav Fetisov, saying that he has no right to say things like that, and Gord Miller's comments saying how, Igor Larionov's proposal of bringing the Russian style back to the Soviet style isn't really all too valid because the Soviets never really won too much against the best in the world anyway. It's a really difficult conversation, I know, but talk to me in the comments to the best of your ability if you want to get involved in that. I hope you enjoyed. This was Yaroslav Askarov, and bye.